3 teenage students were found dead after their principal's hypnosis sessions. Should he be charged with murder? Were these private sessions with minors an evil principal? Perhaps maybe just a scapegoat? Could hypnosis even be considered homicide? 3 students from the same high school dead within months of one another, and many others claimed that they had gone under hypnosis with their principal as well. Thank you for clicking on my podcast. I am Brooke Makenna, and here we focus on the victims over the killers every single time. I would love for you to join our community if you would like to be a part of it. Subscribe, leave a nice comment down below, give this video a thumbs up, and come back every single Sunday for an upload. First, a quick thank you for our sponsors who allow me to continue telling these stories, and today is Fume. I've spoken about them before, and I was so happy because quite a few of you have actually tried this as well, and it has helped you quit vaping. Now, Fume is actually a flavored air device that is designed to help you quit vaping and smoking. Basically, they have done the psychology behind vaping and the hand-to-mouth pattern, and they want to help you break that. So they know that the cravings aren't necessarily just about nicotine. They're about habit, about the hand-to-mouth, that oral fixation, and that actual movement. Basically, it is a fidget-friendly tool that gives your hand something to fixate on other than your cravings, and with Fume, you can literally interrupt old patterns and stick to your resolutions this year. It has a replaceable chewable mouthpiece that you can chew on while you're replacing your habit, and they have the flavored air, which has no nicotine, no vapor, and it doesn't even have batteries. It's a fidget-friendly tool that gives your hand something to fixate on other than your cravings. And so with Fume, you can literally interrupt your old patterns and stick to your resolutions this year. They have different core flavors that you can choose from, and basically it's like flavored water. So it's a bit lighter than the vaping flavors, but they do have the crisp mint, which is best for heavy users, and then they have raspberry, which is on the sweeter end. Or there's so many to choose from black licorice, spearmint ice, cinnamon hearts, and more. So replace nicotine with Fume, and don't just try to quit, upgrade the habit loop. Right now, you can grab your Journey Pack and you will get a free Fume topper for just using my code Brooke. So go to tryfume.com, that's tryfum.com, and use code Brooke to get your free Fume topper and your Journey Pack. Now let's get back to the story. So in 2011, 3 students were found dead within months of each other from the Northport High School in Sarasota County. On March 15th of 2011, 16-year-old Marcus Freeman had passed away. He was a high school jock who dreamed of becoming a quarterback in college for the Florida Gators, and he afterwards wanted to become a sports physician for the other athletes and their injuries. That day of his death, he was actually driving him and his girlfriend home from a dentist appointment when they got into a car crash, and he would die from his injuries. Now, this was a devastating loss, and it was not the last the community would face. A month later, on April 8th of 2011, 16-year-old Wesley McKinley passed away. He was known as a talented musician, a self-taught piano and guitar player, planned on auditioning for the Juilliard School. And then the next month, on May 4th, 2011, a student from the same school, 17-year-old Brittany Palumbo, was found dead in her bedroom closet. She was months away from her 18th birthday with a 4.0 grade average and was sending out college applications. 3 deaths within such a short time period, of course, would arouse many suspicions, and upon further investigation, it was found that the second and the third deaths of Wesley and Brittany, they had both been self-inflicted. Wesley was found hanging from a tree. Brittany was found in her closet. But Brittany's mom, Patricia, claimed that she knew that her daughter was dealing with a breakup, but that she was still friends with her ex-boyfriend, that she was sad, but she was not this depressed. It did not make sense to her. And the first death of Marcus within the car crash, he had his girlfriend with him who had actually survived the incident and would come forward. She would state that they had been at the dentist earlier that day for a procedure on Marcus, and that on the way home he was still in quite a bit of pain. She described that Marcus went into this hypnotized state where he put himself in a trance. He then veered off the road and crashed the car.
He was a guy that would come in every morning and ask what we could do to be better, and it was never about him. And he had that it factor of a confidence, but very humble in the same sense.
I've known Marcus very well. He's a great student, great athlete, and an outstanding. He was a great student, a great athlete, and an outstanding person.
Now, this was not the first time that this is how Marcus would kind of be reacting in this state of complete disassociation. In fact, Marcus Freeman's friend Derek claimed that Marcus had been experiencing trances and he wasn't able to feel his body during those before the car accident. Now, his girlfriend would state that he had a very strange look on his face before driving off the road. There was nothing she could do to stop him. Now, while hypnosis was mentioned in the investigation, this opened up another possible connection between all three of the victims, because Marcus was not the only one acting strange prior to his death. Wesley's mother stated that he was zombie-like the day prior, and was very out of character. He even came home from school that day before he died after a hypnosis session to help him focus on a test. But he was not suicidal, and he was even making plans with his friends. And Brittany's mother stated that she was also acting a bit different, and that her daughter had been given a tool that allowed her to do what she did after hypnosis. So 15 days after the third death of Brittany Palumbo, the school board of Sarasota County went to investigate the Northport High School. They spoke with the executive director of HR and the superintendent of schools in the county. The board had been asked to investigate a situation that occurred at this high school. This involved the possible hypnosis of students by their principal, Dr. George Kenney. Principal Kenney was found to be the first in his class to go to college, and he had worked at Pineview School before taking this job at Northport. He had been there since 2001, and he was said to have done a lot for the school. He created an art center, he launched after-school clubs, he introduced AP classes, and he was known to be a great guy and a great principal. But he was also helping the students in other ways that were very uncommon for a principal. So the board would find that back in May or June of 2009, which was 2 years prior to these deaths, the executive director was actually contacted by the vice principal at Northport, who was Mark Gilliland. The assistant principal, he wanted to express some concerns about early morning meetings that Kenney was forcing them to have. However, the next concern was about a graduation lock-in bash where he had been supervising. This was held at the YMCA, and so this assistant principal believed that the principal was hypnotizing students. And this was the first time he was aware that this was happening. So while the assistant principal was telling the director all of this, the director actually knew that Principal Kenney had taken some classes in hypnosis on his own time, and that was just something that he was very interested in. He had been very passionate about his ability to hypnotize people, and he said that he was doing this to help them. He studied at the Omni Hypnosis Training Center for a 5-day course in 2009. This was run by a famous hypnotist, Jerry Keene, who would teach the basic scripts, methods, and laws, and how it can be practiced. The philosophy was that a better version of ourselves is actually locked up inside of us, and hypnosis can get it out. So Principal Kenney started practicing, but he was not licensed. He first practiced on a high school student named Mike who wanted to be a Marine. Mike had a very unreliable home life, and he had actually developed a head twitch due to stress. Now, the tics would get worse in high-pressure situations, and he was worried that he wouldn't be able to make it through the Marine boot camp. So Principal Kenney offered hypnosis. The tics allegedly disappeared after this, and he went on to the Marines. But the hypnosis helped, and so Principal Kenney would go on to practice on dozens of students, teachers, and parents alike. So the director was having a conversation at this point with Principal Kenney in regards to the hypnosis, and the principal confirmed that he did it at the graduation bash. He also did these hypnosis presentations in psychology classes as well, and it was very common knowledge that he would do all of this. The director told the principal that he needed to limit hypnosis to those classes, and he also needed parental permission and a teacher to be in the classroom. Principal Kenney agreed. He said it was a reasonable expectation. Again, this was 2 years prior to the deaths. The director would be called again a year later, so this was about October 2010, by the supervisor of nurses. She stated that the Northport school nurse, Denise, had come to her after there was a weightlifting injury in the weight room. The nurse had, of course, gone to assess the student and believed he might have pulled his shoulders. His fingers were numbed. She was trying to check his eyes for shock and take his blood pressure. However, Principal Kenney came in and basically took over the situation. He was trying to get the student to focus on him in order for him to relieve his pain. The principal then tried to hypnotize him to release him of some of this discomfort. The nurse said that she was calling because she felt like his actions were interfering with her ability to care for this student. The nurse stated that there were several occasions where there was emergency on campus and Kenney would be the first one there hypnotizing. The same nurse knew that Kenney had been doing hypnosis sessions with individuals in his office. She had actually tried to talk to him one day in his office and was told by the secretary that he was hypnotizing a male student for test anxiety. The door was closed and the lights were off. So the director spoke to Principal Kenney again, and he admitted that he had for things like test relaxation. The director then told him again that it was inappropriate and he needed to stop doing these individual sessions immediately. He said if he was going to do this sort of counseling with the students, it would be off campus with parents' permission, but nothing would be allowed on school grounds except for in psychology class if he had permission slips from everyone involved. But sometime after that, the director would stop in at Northport High School and witnessed an adult walking out of the principal's office. He assumed that it was a student's parents. However, the principal stated that it was, but they weren't actually talking about the student. He was helping him with relaxation techniques as he was trying to pass a firefighter's exam. Again, the director was telling him all the hypnosis would need to be done off campus or in psychology class. And again, Principal Kenney agreed to this. So the director, who was a man named Canty, stated that he had given Principal Kenney the benefit of the doubt and expected him to stop when he was told, which is why he was not following the admin progressive discipline orders to basically get a written expectation from someone that they would stop doing this, and then if it continued, you would follow up with disciplinary action. The director said he knew Principal Kenney for quite some time. He was a high-performing principal who really cared about his kids and his school, and also hypnosis was not illegal. So he and Principal Kenney had this good professional and personal relationship. They were very open with each other, and so he expected George Kenney to stop. About 6 months later, by April of 2011, when Wesley passed away, the director did not know that the first death of Marcus could also be connected to hypnosis. So when Principal Kenney was asked if he had performed hypnosis on Wesley, he had first said yes in psychology class with parental permission. He didn't give any further information. However, by May 2011, Principal Kenney called the director to admit that he had performed hypnosis in individual sessions with Wesley a day before his death. He was only admitting this because a reporter from the Herald Tribune was going to run a story on these deaths and hypnosis, and the parents knew of the principal's hypnosis because they had agreed to it. But it all occurred at the school. Principal Kenney explained that Wesley was interested in psychology and hypnosis, especially with anxiety and phobias. He was searching for a way to basically be more comfortable in social situations, and Wesley was not under the care of a doctor at this time when he met with Principal Kenney 2 times in the presence of someone else, and with his father picking him up after every session. The director then asked point blank to Principal Kenney if he did sessions at the school individually with others, and he said yes, both students, parents, faculty members, and their kids. He worked with students on test anxiety and athletic performance. He said he videotaped some of these sessions with permission and never received any complaints. Now, Brittany was already deceased at this point as well, and the director asked him if he had worked with Brittany before she died. He said no. The director spoke to Kenney about the previous conversations that they had had multiple times in regards to stopping the hypnosis on campus. And Kenney admitted that he knew he was not supposed to do it, but he was helping the students and he would do anything to help them. Now, on May 17th of 2011, Dr. George Kenney was placed on administrative leave, and parents and students alike began to accuse the principal of not knowing the dangerous side effects of hypnosis and aiding in these teens' deaths.
Well, I learned today, I spoke with one of them who has two teenage sons. One's a sophomore, one's a senior at Northport High School. The one that's and they both support what happened. They understand that the suicide was an isolated incident, but they went through his hypnosis classes at length, many times over the course of a couple months, and they say that it helped them out tremendously.
He helped them. That's all. I mean, he just really helped them with everything that they were struggling with. He basically could get them to go under in a matter of seconds after he had worked with them.
I think that there would have to be an awful lot of other factors in place, that this would just be one tiny piece of the puzzle, and I certainly wouldn't see a direct correlation to that in any way.
On leave with pay, he's not going to the school at this point, and the investigation is ongoing.
The director stated that he was concerned for Principal Kenney's welfare, that he knew the community had gone through a lot of tragedy, and he wanted Kenney to know that there was an employee assistance program available if he needed it, due to all of this attention on him at this point. The director then took over as the interim principal, and he spoke to the staff, and a majority of them supported Principal Kenney fully. One teacher said that she had concerns, but it was so common for him to be doing all of this that she thought it must be okay. Then the assistant principal, Mark Gilliand, the one who had called the director in the first place, he went into further detail about the graduation lock-in. So he was interviewed by the board, and he stated that he knew of Principal Kenney's hypnosis use all the way back in 2006. This was at a meeting when one of the assistant principal's sons, who was a high school senior, came in to be hypnotized by Principal Kenney. He said that after graduation, about 200 to 300 students would head to the YMCA for basically a supervised sleepover where they were all locked inside. All the way back in 2007 or 2008, Principal Kenney was doing this hypnotizing demo with about 8 to 12 students. And during this time, the lock-ins were held every year, and the administrators would all be the supervisors. However, as the years went on, the assistant principal remembered that he was to supervise from about 2 a.m. to 5 a.m., and he then watched Principal Kenney doing the hypnosis sessions that he had been hearing about. Now, the assistant principal claimed that Principal Kenney was passionate about kids. He would never do anything to harm a kid. He was a good-hearted individual who would never do anything malicious to his students, ever. That he runs a great school. He has a lot of support from the staff and the students. And he stated that he believes that Principal Kenney should accept this punishment, whatever it is, and then get back to school with no more hypnotism. But he believed he should be able to go back. So the psychology teacher, who was a woman named Ann Brandenburger, was interviewed next. She had been at this school for 6 years at this point, and she confirmed that Principal Kenney did hypnosis demos in her class starting in about 2008 to 2009, and he would give a lesson on how it all worked, and he would demo on some of the students. She said that he would have them close their eyes, deep breathe, and then imagine themselves walking on a beach. She said he never made them do anything humiliating, and if anybody wanted to join, they had to have parental permission. They started those permission slips in about 2009, 2010, the next year, and they did so moving forward after Principal Kenney told Ann that they were needed. And supported this fully, and even had her high school age son go to Kenney when he was under high stress. He was a baseball pitcher, he had a lot of anxiety, and so he went under hypnosis and knew that Kenney was just teaching her son how to relax, because she said she had actually watched the sessions. And basically, Principal Kenney would just tell him to sit in the dugout and picture himself in a happy place. Her son had 2 or 3 sessions with Kenney in his office where she was present, and she also knew that a few of her son's friends, the fellow athletes, also did sessions. So Anne became very emotional in her interview, explaining that Principal Kenney was someone that she had known for 25 years, that he had impeccable character and is honest, that she believed that the whole issue was for the district to save themselves and was all a non-issue. She stated that he had committed no crimes. Anne stated, Dr. Kenney isn't doing any hocus pocus. That is just what this has been blown into. She said he was not putting them in any sort of a trance-like state. But on May 25th of 2011, 8 days after Principal Kenney was placed on leave, he was interviewed by the board. He relayed his timeline for the investigation, stating that he had begun to be interested in hypnosis back in high school. And by 2005, he was doing a bit of practicing on the students, and he recalled an incident in 2007 where 2 students went into a very deep state during the session, and they wouldn't talk to anyone or hear anyone besides their commander. When he brought them out, they were very paranoid about the people who were talking about them, but that only lasted about 5 minutes. He would do this with groups of students, and he said there were chaperones, there were teachers present, and no one ever had any concerns. By 2006, he said that was the first time that he worked one-on-one with a student. This was at his own home about test anxiety. But after that, in 2006, and then all the way through 2009, he stated that he only did demos with groups and in psychology classes. And then Anne Brandenburger, the psychology teacher, asked him to have a session with one of her students after his parent had come to her and said that he was basically very frustrated. So he began to work one-on-one with this boy, and then that is when he went in for the November 2009 training at the Omni Hypnosis Center. And he said that after that, students were seeking his help, and so sessions were being held after school. That same year, he made 5 CDs of hypnosis, things such as anger management, test anxiety, sports performance, improved attitude with school, and stress control. These were the same dialogues that he would use in solo sessions, and he even uploaded this to Amazon. It was such a well-known thing, and he wasn't hiding anything. In 2010, he created a website for athletes, and his ultimate goal was to retire and teach college ed courses and also do hypnosis on college athletes. He believed that he worked with about 45 individuals, 36 of them students. It was then found to be about more like 75. But he stated that with sessions done in his office, he never closed the window on the door. And he said that 50 to 60% of the time, there was somebody else in the room with them. He said once he was asked not to do this on campus, he tried to look for other areas like libraries, but nothing was suitable. And the SATs were coming up. He said students started coming up to him more frequently asking for help, and so that's when he just continued in his office. He said he also did sessions over the phone. Principal Kenney admitted that this passion of his had stepped over his good judgment at times, but he was only trying to help the students be more successful and overcome their barriers. He does not believe that he stepped over the line. He admitted working with victim Wesley McKinley once in class and twice individually. The one-on-one allegedly had other students present, and that was before his death. He said that Wesley's parents told him that their son very much enjoyed spending time with him and thanked him for helping him. But it was then revealed that what Dr. Kenney had initially said he hadn't done, hypnotize Brittany Palumbo, he actually had. The third victim he had lied about. He had hypnotized her once, at least, in November of 2010 with her mother present 6 months before her death. And he then admitted that he worked with Marcus Freeman about 6 days before his car crash. It was stated that Dr. Kenney felt that there was no correlation to what he was doing with the students and these deaths, that it was an unimaginable coincidence, and that he initially felt that if the information came out, it would be made to appear that it was something that it wasn't, which is why he lied. He began to cry during the interview and said that he was willing to take responsibility for what he has done. But almost every interview of the staff from the board gave them the same conclusion. The staff believed that Kenney made some bad decisions, but he was a good man. Pretty much everyone knew that he was doing this, that this was happening, and nobody was concerned. They all spoke of his character, his desire to help. Most wanted him to return to school the next year. He was a father figure to many of the students who in that school were a population of needy students who were a struggling community. He was described as the glue that holds the school together. The secretary actually said she did sessions with him to quit smoking, and students who had been hypnotized by Kenney said it wasn't anything evil and it often helped them. But some of the victims' friends, however, felt differently. One of Wesley's friends stated that he was aware of Wesley's sessions and that when he saw Wesley after the sessions, he never remembered anything, not even his own name. It was like he was still fully emerged. The friend stated that one day, about a month before the car crash, Wesley attended a group session during school hours, and afterwards he got on the bus and he was very quiet, which was unusual. Wesley was known to be this loudmouth, but he started looking at his hands and he started counting his fingers, and he counted 11, and then he got very upset. His friend began calling his name, and he did not remember that Wesley was his name. The friend knew that he was not faking it because he did this the whole 15-minute drive, the same thing over and over again, just talking to himself. He then asked his friend to punch him when they got off the bus. The other victim, Marcus, he was a star athlete. He was a starting quarterback in his sophomore year, and it was noticed by other teams and other teammates that he was really improving. And so, of course, the fact that he was undergoing hypnosis and that could be affecting his skills was very talked about. Before games, he would go and visit Principal Kenney. When he wasn't playing, he would be seen on the sidelines of the football game like he was in a trance. Marcus's girlfriend was in the hospital until the next day, and that is when she would tell Derek what had happened, and she said that they were singing in the car, her and Marcus, Firework by Katy Perry, and she looked over at him and suddenly his arms were locked up on the steering wheel at 10 and 2, and his eyes were rolled back in his head. She couldn't get him out of it. They crashed and she went unconscious, and when she woke up in the hospital, she was yelling, "Where is Marcus?"
We heard Marcus's name and we just couldn't believe it. Someone like that and a role model from the school is down and out, and so are we now.
And we understand that Carly actually called Marcus's dad. What do you know about that?
Marcus's dad came to the field and he was here for everybody. He was here talking, letting us know that we're all going to be all right. And Carly gave us a call from the hospital, let us know that she was all right, and she appreciated us being all out there for him and her.
But many wondered if this was hypnosis or if this was possibly due to his dental procedure that day. The dentist was allegedly not interviewed at all, but especially not about which drugs, numbing shots that he was given, and if this could have affected anything. Mainly, the students were very overwhelmed with all of this tragedy that had been occurring because along with the 3 students' deaths, a teacher had also been killed in a car crash around this time. I was unable to find more information on her and if she was ever hypnotized or if this was a completely separate incident. But these teens had no idea how to process all of this loss. All they knew was that the hypnosis was normal to them and their school. Test scores were going up, sports teams were doing better, parents didn't seem concerned, they were giving permission. But after 3 deaths of these kids, when people started connecting them to Principal Kenney, they worried they were going to be next. However, some people still took Principal Kenney's side. Facebook pages were open to support him, and so it was this huge contrast at this point between this principal being a hero and a killer. George Kenney's attorney, who was Mark Zimmerman, stated that there was no casual connection between the hypnosis sessions and the suicides. They were all working on test anxiety and had permission slips from parents. He said it sort of just conjures up a feeling of mind control, which of course is not what hypnosis is. This was hypnosis as a relaxation and a focus technique to aid in test and athletic performance. Principal Kenney stated that he had no indications that the students who later committed were suffering from mental illness. He said that Wesley was dealing with cyberbullying and drama behind the scenes, and Brittany was going through a breakup. By July of 2011, the school district spokesman, Jerry Leatherman, said that school officials were waiting to see if the Northport police were going to prosecute Kenney under a decades-old state law that requires a doctor's reference for hypnosis as therapy. The Florida Department of Health determined that Principal Kenney was overstepping his rights without a healthcare license. So he was charged with 2 misdemeanor charges for practicing without.
The state attorney says the former Northport High School principal broke the law when he hypnotized students. Now he's facing criminal charges.
Our investigation focused on the elements of the crime, and we felt that the investigation led us that Dr. Kenney had committed a crime.
If we're not able to resolve the case to both parties' mutual satisfaction, then my assumption is we would be heading for a jury trial.
I've been hypnotized actually by him, and he always had someone there with us, so nothing bad ever happened. I remember just being completely relaxed. Nothing bad happened. It actually improved my game.
I don't think he should be anywhere near any students. It's not a good thing. I hope he learns from this.
Dr. Kenney was a fabulous person, a good person, and someone who I'm afraid has got caught into a situation that he probably could have avoided but didn't.
Dr. George Kenney was placed on leave in May of 2011, and in February 2012, he pleaded no contest to the charge of practicing therapeutic hypnosis without a license. 4 months later, on June 30th of 2012, George Kenney officially resigned from his position. He was sentenced to a year of probation and 50 community hours. In a documentary called Look Into My Eyes, George Kenney stated that he pleaded no contest because he was an educator in Florida, and that meant that if he was a convicted felon, he would lose his retirement benefits. In 2013, George Kenney gave up his teaching license under pressure from the Florida Department of Education, and he could not apply for another. In 2014, the students sued the Sarasota County School Board for the wrongful death, claiming that they should have prevented Principal Kenney from hypnotizing their children. They stated Kenney altered the underdeveloped brains of teenagers, and they all ended up dead because of it.
George Kenney at that time told her that he believed that she had test anxiety. What I believed happened is that my daughter went into her room that night and she blinked her eyes rapidly, and she entered a calm and relaxed state that allowed her to go through what she went through. The school board is as negligent as Dr. Kenney is, or Mr. Kenney, I should say. They failed us as parents. I need those other families to know that I'm trying to help their kids and their families so that they don't end up like my daughter and my family.
One student's deposition stated that after they were hypnotized by Principal Kenney, they were unable to find their room. They were lost for about 20 minutes walking around. Dr. Kenney was asked about the sessions that he claimed he had recorded, and he stated that he erased all of those after everything came out in the media. Some were found, however, and placed into this documentary. He would be face to face with these minors doing a descent to get them into hypnosis. They appeared to be doing exactly what they were told, often appearing like they weren't fully conscious. Whether this was a conscious movement is unknown, but under a settlement, each of the families were awarded $200,000 in 2015, and the attorney noted that the most disappointing thing to the families was that George Kenney never apologized. He never admitted his wrongdoing, and he was now living in retirement with his pension. He was exempt from individual action against him because he was an employee of the school board, and the board didn't even accept liability for the teen's death. Wesley's parents would say he was committing crimes by engaging in hypnosis. We hope that the school board will change the way it operates to prevent these types of tragedies from occurring in the future. We will move forward with hope that our wonderful son's legacy will be that the school board puts children's physical and mental welfare first and foremost. Marcus's mom said, "There's nothing that can bring Marcus back, but we hope that this can bring us some closure." Brittany's mom said, "Dr. Kenney sought all 3 of our children out for this hypnosis. We believe his behavior is nothing less than narcissistic." But after completing probation, it was said that George Kenney moved to North Carolina and retired. He now runs a small bed and breakfast close to the Smoky Mountains, and he too was interviewed for this documentary, and he became emotional. And he stated that this was all a love story of what every teacher feels for their kids. What do you think of all of that? What is your gut telling you here? Do you think that hypnosis is equal to homicide? Was there more of a disturbing reason that this principal wanted to have these minors hypnotized, get inside of their heads while they were in his office? Was this abuse of authority by a principal, even if the students were coming to him? Could these mental health issues and committing have been from the trauma, the tragedy of Marcus's car crash and the teacher's car crash prior? Was it a downhill spiral of mental health that would have been present with or without hypnosis? Were these teens really going into these states that possibly were helping them with some things, but were also leading it to where they were not necessarily in control of their bodies? Do you think if hypnosis possibly was involved in these deaths, do you think that that is what George Kenney intended on doing, or was he a helpful individual who was genuinely just trying to ease the anxiety of a lot of his students and it went wrong? Do you think he should have been charged with murder? And do you think that he was a scapegoat for this school to cover up their negligence and make him look like he was individually the only one at fault here? My heart breaks for the parents of Wesley, of Marcus, and of Brittany. Within months of each other is absolutely tragic, and I cannot imagine how that entire community felt. It's no wonder that some of these theories were coming up when something like this is happening back to back. Did it get out of hand? Did it go too far? Or was not enough done? But thank you for listening. Do not forget to speak up. Your voice is powerful enough. Replace nicotine with fume, and don't just try to quit. Upgrade the habit loop. Right now you can grab your journey pack and you will get a free fume topper for just using my code Brooke. So go to tryfume.com, that's TRYFUM.com, and use code Brooke to get your free fume topper and your journey pack. And I will see you next Sunday. Okay, bye.